Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I am Seahawks Brendan Nelson, and I am joined as I am pretty much going forward. I think it's going to be basically every week in some capacity, twice a week, in fact. Brandon, I want to welcome you to the show. How you doing?
I am doing awesome. We are mere days away, Brendan. I'm over here chomping at the bit.
Yeah, we are right there. And before the season starts, before we start getting meaningful games, we got to put some stuff on the record here.
All right.
We got to lay some stuff down. As John Jock Taylor of ESPN sometimes says, speak now or shut up later. Like if you're going to put yourself out there, you got to start making the predictions before the games start.
It's true enough. And you got to put it down. No using pencil here. No number 2 pencil. It's got to be quill, ink, old school style. I'm talking all the way with a scroll, Brendan. You know what I mean? It's down there. There's no undoing it once it's done.
That's right. And we're going to get some stuff wrong, but we're going to see how much we can get right. We're going to talk about this upcoming season today. Going to talk about the games. We're going to talk about the players. We're going to have some positives. We're going to have some negatives. There's going to be some interesting stuff this year. It's a year unlike any season we've had in over a decade. And I'm intrigued. I'm not going to pretend like I think this team is going to shock everybody and make some Super Bowl run or anything like that. But I believe this team can do some things that are compelling and do some things that make us optimistic for the future.
Yes. I as I said, I think that I have a limit to how high I think the team can potentially get, but I do think that they get, if things went right, to a reasonable high level. But then there's a big swing to this other side of it, on the low level of it, going, boy, if this doesn't work, if that doesn't work, if this is not put in place, then this is probably where we end up at.
So let's lead with some schedule stuff, because this is the stuff that people really go out for. This is the stuff that people are starting to put their money down on. So
no.
Back when the schedule came out, we did a video. We actually looked at the schedule live on stream for the first time together.
Mm-hmm.
And we both threw out our thoughts, but things have changed. We've gotten to see 3 preseason games. We've gotten to hear about training camp. We know about the injuries. We know about what players are looking like so far in the process of being brought along. So let's take another shot at this before the season starts. And for my part, just speaking generally, when we did the schedule prediction earlier this year, I said 7-10.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little more bearish now, just a little. I still don't think we're terrible, but I don't think that we're going to be quite as stable as I thought. But I still say we're going to be in that general vicinity. So last time you said, I think 8-9.
That was right.
How are you sticking to that in a general sense, that level of competency, or have you come down a little bit, or have you gone up?
It was a tough preseason, Brendan. It wasn't. It wasn't the prettiest of preseasons. This is where it comes to the thing of I think we make these predictions. They're going to be hard as hell to really make as much as you and I both try to make these from an intelligent standpoint. It's really hard this year because so much is built around the unknown, and there's also some built around Carroll really adopting these things offensively and defensively. I might pull it down a game from 8 from where I was. We'll see where it stands as I look through these games, kind of going blow by blow with it. But I would tend to believe that I'm probably right around there.
Yeah. I will say I do see the path, but it's a narrow path. It's all about on offense. You don't have big negative plays. You don't have penalties. You let Geno stay in the 2nd and 5, the 3rd and 2. You don't force obvious passing downs on him where it's like 2nd and 18. Everyone knows you're going to throw it. Or 3rd and 14, everyone knows you're going to throw it. So if you can avoid that, if you can really stay on schedule, I can see it coming together. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I feel like there are a lot of teams out there that say that when the season starts, but it's one thing to say you're going to stay on schedule on offense, but it's a whole nother thing to actually do it.
Yeah, I mean, look, your skepticism also has to be factored in by what happened last year, and that you didn't do it. You didn't adopt the machinations of this offense. Instead, you were more, or at least you were half and half between the two. 1 foot in 2 different pools. And that's a big part of this, Brendan, when I say that I think the big dependency here for Brendan is not the young guys developing. They'll be fine. The big thing is not being talent deprived. We've got enough talent. The big thing is not the tough schedule. To me, the big thing will come down to both the schematic offense and defensively really taking hold forward. And the reason I think it has a little bit, maybe even bigger effect than you do if it's successful, and that's both sides of the ball, is because you're going from the Jurassic age to what's 3 ages forward. You're not just, as I made this kind of before, it's not like if you were at the Niners right now, move on from a Shanahan and they're bringing in a different offensive coach. You're going, okay, well, this might not be might be Sean Payton. Go, well, maybe Payton's right there or near with him, but that's not as much a bump coaching wise as what you would get in what you're gaining in the X's and O's. Here on offense and defense, you have considerably updated yourself to now finally be able to take advantage of X's and O's for the first time in a long period of time. But will you? That's a whole nother question to it. They put it in place, which has been running up in these last 10 years. They never put that stuff into place. You ran the same offense, Schottenheimer inheriting 70% of the playbook when he took over for Bevel. That's how this game's been played. So now it's really the change has been put in place as far as theoretically speaking. Now we just have to see it to, take place reality, but it could have a huge effect. Imagine that, Brendan, you go from being the most predictable to being one of the most unpredictable on both sides of the ball.
Right. And I don't know how unpredictable we're going to be on offense with Geno Smith, at quarterback. I don't, but
outside, I mean it more, sorry to interrupt you, but I mean more into those two elements of now, instead of being 90 to 95% of your runs or A-gap runs, you're actually utilizing the fly sweep. You're actually bringing in the outside zone. I mean, that's how the Niners have been devastating while not having the greatest of quarterback play, is that they are able to utilize the full complements of the run game, not just a bit of the run game. And that's Coach Carroll's old school approach of let's wear a defense down by hammering up the middle and just tire them out, wear them down, where Shanahan's like, let's get to the edges. Let's get in space. Let's run some big runs off here.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I look at what they have over in San Francisco, and I'm just like, there's got to be some way to replicate that. This can't just be something where they're the only ones in the world who can do it. So hopefully we see some of that. And of course, the defense is going to be very interesting. How are we going to incorporate bringing in guys like Desai, bringing in guys, well, not bringing in, but promoting Clint Hurt? Like, how is that going to affect things? We heard all the ways in which it could affect things. Will it actually happen when the season starts? But yeah, I'm kind of with you on the fact that the preseason did not fill me with a ton of confidence. It wasn't a great preseason, not just in terms of result, but also in terms of process. A lot of A-gap runs, a lot of base 4-3 defense. So when the games actually start mattering, is that going to change? That's the question.
Well, that's the hard part to predict. That's the part where I think the skepticism is well placed, because that second part you mentioned is the most important part. I could care less about losing 3 games in the preseason. That's not it at all. It's what are you seeing and how are you losing and what's going on, tackling being an issue. And you're not seeing any of the inventiveness that I'm talking about that I'm thinking they're going to implement day one here on both sides of the ball. None of that was really put in very much on either side of the ball in the preseason. But it got a little bit better over time, and I'm going to just keep counting on the fact that there's no way they've taken these big changes, because he's been so reluctant just to bring him in this way, Brendan, the Waldron change and the Desai change. Up until this point, Carroll's fought tooth and nail not to go in this direction and expand it. That's why he called it arrogant in the offseason, their approach previously. And the thing I had forgotten about, Brendan, that I think we got to remember with this is that Desai, to bring him here, you had to give him some little tidbits of extra controls you would normally just give to a coach you're bringing in. One of those was game planning. So that's again where I go from the Jurassic age to the modern age, because you previously said, okay, a secondary, you're going to run cover 3. Just this play, coach, you're like, for the next 9 plays, you're going to run cover 3. And then on the 10th one, we're going to run cover 2. Okay. And then what happened? And then we'll go back to cover 3, back to cover 2. We'll kind of mix it a little there. That was what you did. Now you've got a guy in Desai who might be saying, okay, we're going to run some cloud. Let's run we'll run some man to one side, Mabel, man to one side, cover 3 to the other. We'll mix in a little bit more stuff. And that's where you're going from that update point, potentially. I'm hoping, Brendan, man. And maybe I'm being just too much of an optimist here. I could be blind in my respect of not understanding Carroll's never going to, too old of a dog to change his ways, but I'm counting on the fact that I do truly believe he will this year.
Yeah. That's all you can do as a fan. All you can do is hope. You have no ability to actually affect this stuff. So,
No, it's true.
all right. So let's start with the schedule. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on each game because we talked about this at length in a previous stream. But let's allow what we have seen over the last couple months to maybe alter our opinions a little bit. So let's go through the schedule here. I got it pulled up. Starting with week 1, Monday Night Football hosting the Denver Broncos. This is our Super Bowl. This is the big one.
This is it. This is all the money's on the first game right out the chute. Live or die. The season rides all on this. No pun intended.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've had a season where we knew it was going to all be downhill from week 1. But how can it not be all downhill from this week 1?
Oh, this is going to be potentially, I mean, if it's the least bit competitive, they'll be calling it the game of the year. You know, if it even just comes down to the fourth quarter, they'll be like, oh, they're going back and forth. The two, once coach and his quarterback and tit for tat. And, that all those narratives that'll be built in at that point. So yeah, it's going to be amazing for this game to open things up.
Right.
Yeah, I can't remember a season opener this big. Can you? Like one that maybe that
usually they're not that good.
No, I mean, usually they're like you're out off the East Coast playing Jacksonville or Carolina or some team down. Like I don't know. It's just not a lot of times where seems like a good opponent.
Yeah. Okay. So I still think this game will find a way to be competitive. I just don't think a game with this much behind it is going to be boring. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I don't think it's going to be any of those things. I just, even if I can't totally explain it technically, I just feel like the energy of that game will not allow it to just be some the first game LeBron played in Cleveland after he went to the Miami Heat. The Heat won, I think, by like 25 or something. It wasn't even a game. It was a, joke of a game. I don't think that's going to happen.
No.
But as for winning, I'm having a hard time finding a way for us to score enough points to win. So I'm going to stick with something like 24-17 Broncos. What about you?
I actually am moving in a little bit of a different direction on this particular game. And the reason being is this being the thing that's the main, it's close to me already because it's the factors involved. But the main thing that pushes me over the side of it is that Russell Wilson's not played any preseason games. He's a guy that tends to be one of those guys that wants to have a little bit. I know we've predicted him previous preseasons, but we've never not played him any preseason, I don't believe. And correct me if I'm wrong on that. And this is a new offense for him. I mean, it's not the exact same Waldron offense he's running over there with Hackett. It has got its own different type of stylings into it. I'm sure different terminology to it. He's playing with all new players. No live time on the field with those guys out the chute. It's all going to be kind of fresh in that respect of things. And then you look at this philosophy, which is one that Hackett's taken on from the Packers head coach, and this is also something you've seen from McVay. But remember what happened to the Packers week 1 last year? They got smoke showed by the Saints week 1. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was at home in Green Bay.
Sounds right.
And so, and he was asked about it. I saw a quote today about, this is what's brought this to my mind, Brendan, is I saw a quote from Hackett about that, where they're like, well, yeah, but your week 1, you guys looked miserable and out of sorts. He's like, yeah, but it's not for week 1 why we do it. It's for the longevity of the season. Gives me some hope. I'm just a little hope, just a little
Yeah,
hope.
I mean, if weird little preseason the Broncos had, really. They couldn't run the ball at all the first 2 games. They averaged like 1.5 yards a carry. I think it was a little better in the last game, but so many key guys not playing at all. It's then again, it's not that different than what we did, right? Like we didn't have Penny, we didn't have Brooks, we didn't have Adams, Diggs, Sidney Jones, although that was because of injury. So not radically different than what we did in the preseason, but yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
I think it's going to be a tightly contested affair. I think Carroll's going to find a way to keep this close. It's going to be under 20 points for most of the game. And then both teams are probably going to try to run the ball a decent amount. I think the Broncos, knowing where they're at, they're going to try to get a little bit more run in this game than they probably do later on in the year, quite frankly. But I think it'll come down to a ball bouncing our way or the energy of the play, something just at the right moment for us. Maybe Wilson's lost that fourth quarter magic that seemed to have been escaping him the past couple of years here. But we somehow hold on to win by like a field goal.
I mean, Also, if you're on Team Tank, some people are on Team Tank. This game, it doesn't matter, right? Because we got
That's
both
right.
first-round picks. So even if you're on Team Tank, you can root for them to win this game. You can root for them to lose every other game if you want to. But this one,
Get out
either
of the
way,
tank.
everything's going to work out.
This one, get out of the tank.
So you still think we find a way? I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not. It kind of makes me think of, like, what a black swan event is?
I've heard the phrase, but remind me on what the...
It's something that nobody was predicting, or very few people were predicting was going to happen. Then it happens, and then everybody goes, oh, well, that was really easy to see coming. If you had looked at this, this, and that, that was actually obvious. Like, everyone pretends like, oh, I saw that coming. Like, if Wilson comes out of the gate and is playing really poorly, nobody's predicting that right now, but people are then going to say, oh, it's because he didn't play in the preseason. Just give him a month.
New offense, new team.
So maybe I'm not ruling it out. I just, I wish Drew Lock had worked out in the preseason and he was the quarterback. I would have a little more belief there. With Geno, it's just, well, you're not going to turn the ball over very much, but how do you score?
I mean, it's going to be, I think, an issue with him. The not turnover, but is he going to be able to score enough? I think you're going to get a little more field goals with him than you will touchdowns from the prior as well, which is going to limit some things. But, it's a bit comes back to protecting the defense, running the ball is what's going to win you games. You do those two things. And if you do those two things in this upcoming game, along with playing good special teams, you can win it. And it's not on the back. It doesn't go then back on the back of Geno at that point. Yeah, he's got to do something, but he doesn't have to do a lot of something.
The Snail, thank you for the $5. Seahawks start 2-0, making donkey fans cry and ending Trey Lance's career as a starting QB, and Abe Lucas as a All-Pro end of year. If Abe Lucas makes All-Pro at the end of his rookie year, I mean,
look out.
Yeah.
Look
yeah.
out.
Go. Yeah. I think Brandon's going to put together like a 3-hour long cut up video on his channel.
I will be at the altar of Lucas. That's where I'll start. There'll be
he might do that anyway.
There'll be a bust of him, and then it'll be start with me in a cloak, turning back to the camera, like the old monk cloaks, I might even do the U-shape shave head thing that they did back in the day too. Just go that deep, that hard with it.
Yeah, sign me up for that though. Beating the Broncos, beating the Niners. At that point, I'd be like, okay, I can take whatever the 2022 season can throw at me now. I'm good. I'm pretty happy. But let's talk about that second game, that 49ers game now. Trey Lance, one of the first games of his career. I know he started a couple games last year, but still a kid, still basically that little kid. He's younger than Will Levis. He's younger than KJ Jefferson. He's younger than all these guys who are still in college football. It's crazy. Don't know how that happened, but it did. But you're going into San Francisco playing a team that was a play or two away from the Super Bowl last year. You lead with this one, man. What do you got?
Well, definitely this is another game it's going to be a bit like week one, where you have two teams that I think want to run the ball at a really high rate. And it could come down to who runs the ball better more than which quarterback plays better. And because of the stylings of these two teams, I don't want to be boring in my answer, but I think, especially with the young Lance, what are you going to do, Brendan? You're going to give him a high volume of running plays, a lot of read option with him running the ball a decent amount, especially having Garoppolo on the bench. It's going to afford them the ability to then use Trey Lance a little more freely, Lamar-like, in the run game, as opposed to trying to make him fit into more of a Garoppolo type pocket passer role. So I think you're going to get a heavy stream of that. It's a little more unpredictable this year in the Seahawks stopping the run play with San Francisco. There's been, I think, Brendan, two reasons we've owned San Francisco over the last 10 years. One being Russell Wilson, but the other being maybe even a bigger reason is that Carroll is one of those weird ass coaches who first and foremost wants to stop the run before almost anything else. And that going up against a guy like Shanahan, who wants to run the ball more than anything else, is not a very good styling for the Niners to run into there. Unfortunately, though, you are changing theoretically your defense. This is where, Brendan, again, the intelligence has to come in from Carroll on a week-to-week basis. Because why, and I'm sorry to go along with this answer, but bear with me, Brendan. Why the Niners have beat the Rams is the Rams are running that Fangio cover 2. And the cover 2's got the defensive ends running the 4-eye technique, which is 4 inside, right? And that allows those offensive tackles easier ability to then pin block, because the guy's already naturally to your inside shoulder. You just got to turn in at that point. It's almost not even a matter of you pushing the guy. It's just you setting the block, and then you just pull a whole bunch of people around that tackle, and you create the lane for the running back that way. Well, when you've got a 4-3 defense with our principles, especially with the Sam linebacker as a fifth de facto defensive lineman at times, we crush that wide zone running game when we run that in the past. That's been how we've done it. But now we're going to the 3-4-ish, theoretically, more of the 3-4-ish principles. So theoretically, even though we've got the commitment, I don't know if it's going to as much schematically hold in base with that, because we've kind of redesigned our front and how we run that. But this would be a week, Brendan, I'd say Niners run more of that 0-4-3. This is the week to run it.
Yeah. And this was actually one of my predictions that I posted in a video last week, that the Seahawks run defense would take a significant step back, and it would be allowing somewhere around 4.5 yards a carry instead of 4. It's near the middle of the pack. And there would be a few different reasons why that is. Cody Barton certainly being one of them. I don't think he's going to hold up against the run. But you also just have a new defense in general. I think that you're going to miss Wagner in that area. Like, I completely supported moving on from Wagner, but I do predict the run defense is going to take a step back to like 4.5 yards per carry, opposed to last 2 years it's been like 4. So I agree with you on that front. And because of that, it's just hard for me to continue to think we can keep up this dominance against the Niners. I think the whole idea of having their number is going to kind of fade a little bit now that they have a quarterback who can make some plays down the field, which Jimmy never could. And I'm just not feeling the win here either. Offensively, I don't know what to expect in a game like this. That Niners defense, man, I mean, they lose Robert Saleh, and they keep it up, man. They didn't phase him nearly as much as I thought it would. So that's going to be a problem for sure.
Well, and they continue to manage to invest in that defensive line consistently. And they drafted the kid out of USC, Drake Jackson, who was, I don't know if he had star quotient qualities to him, but at least was going to be a guy that's fairly decent, really young guy with a decent floor to him. And a guy I like to call him in the draft, Brendan. That was the guy that I said, this is what we thought Rasheem Green was going to be when we drafted him. It was basically that kid. And so they do a good job of that, and that gives you problems, because then it allows them a lot of flexibility on the back end to run a lot of different coverages and really squeeze down some zones, because they don't have to blitz to get the pressure.
Okay, week 3, we are hosting the Atlanta Falcons.
Who did we say? So we're both on losses? We're both losses.
I'm on a loss.
All right, I'm a loss too on that. I'm with it too. We just didn't say, so I want to make sure that.
Yeah, I'm not feeling it, but I'll tell you what I am feeling. Week 3, we're hosting the Atlanta Falcons. Marcus Mariota looks like he's going to be in town.
Yes.
Probably Mariota still starting. Ritter looked pretty good in the preseason though, so maybe that happens sooner rather than later. But Atlanta team, not a lot going on in the pass catching department right now. Kyle Pitts and what's the rookie Drake London?
Drake London.
Yeah, didn't he get hurt in preseason too, by the way?
He did.
Yeah,
I didn't see the severity injury. They were worried, and I think it was a little less than what they thought initially, but I didn't double check back to see where the final prognosis was.
Yeah, so this game I'm feeling pretty decent about. It's at home. I don't think Atlanta's going to be very good. I think that the cross-country trip kills you, coming over from the East Coast to the West Coast. And I'm going to say we get our first win of the year against the Falcons. I'm going to stick to that. I said it last time. I'll say it this time.
Yeah, this is a win for me too. I don't think Mariota or Ritter is going to be enough to press this defense down. They don't have enough offensively, I think, I think our defense will be good enough to put them in check. They had a much better offense a couple of years ago, and I think we gave up a good amount of yards passing, but we were relatively okay at home and against Atlanta a few years ago. So I offensively against their defense, I mean, they got Grady Jarrett there left. They've run a little bit of a different scheme there, I think, since in the last couple of years since that new head coach took over, and Jarrett's not in that same position he was with Quinn, running that pure 3 technique role. We'll see if he's healthy enough, but then it's just really the corner on the outside from Clemson, AJ something or rather out there. He might be the best corner in the game, actually. He's one of those kind of quiet, like if you're really
AJ
breaking
Terrell?
down. Yeah, I don't think he is the best, but he's probably in the top 3. And he was a guy that I loved him come out of the draft. He was just such a pure fit for our scheme back the way we used to run it. And so those are really all you've got to deal with as far as problem areas on that defense for Atlanta. So even with us being a little bit maybe depressed offensively speaking, I feel like they made that change in scheme a couple of years ago to their defense, and it really hasn't. The personnel's not caught up to it and what they've done to feed it, because they were trying to still keep the offense up to snuff with Ryan on the other side of things.
Yeah. So not a whole lot to say about that game. It's not super compelling. It's not some big rivalry. It's just a game, and I feel pretty good about that one. So we're both win. I'm a win. You're a win.
I'm a win.
Yeah, I like it. All right, week 4, we're going to Detroit to take on the Lions. Kneecap biting. What was the other stuff that he said? Crowbar stabbing. I don't know, all the crazy stuff that guy gets up to.
He's always about to chew on something or assault something else. I can never quite keep up.
Yeah, but he's fun. I mean, did you see any of Hard Knocks this year?
I haven't. I saw a couple of the sound bites from it, but I've just always invested in the past years and just hated what I've watched. Where I'm like, this is boring the hell out of me. It's not what I wanted, not what it kind of like used to feel like a little bit. So that's been but maybe I should check it out. Is it pretty good?
It's entertaining. They got some former players that I remember playing on that coaching staff. They got, I think, Deuce Staley. They got Aaron Glenn. And it's kind of cool to see these guys as coaches now, because I remember them when they were actually playing, and you never really think they're going to become coaches most of the time.
I'm always surprised by the guys that end up getting into coaches versus where they were as a player. Just that you wouldn't necessarily have thought that. Like Aaron Curry. Never would have thought Aaron Curry was going to be a coach. That was always, threw me off for it. But look, if there's going to be the modern day archetype, Brendan, for the new coach is the young coach, right? Well coiffed, who's very much in control on the sideline, in control of his emotions, stoic. And that is your new coach. That's the new du jour that everybody's wanting to hire up. And if the old coach can still work, I wake up and shoot on nails just for the hell of it and lay on glass in my off time. If that kind of guy can still take hold in the NFL and it's not just a flash in the pan, or that they tune him out as professionals, because when you get that level, it just doesn't work, as sometimes we've been told. I don't have a firm opinion on this, by the way, but if there's one guy who could make this work, Brendan, it would be Dan Campbell, being that he is as fiery and flaming as they come in this respect. He is the Uber version of these kind of guys.
And actually, Dan Campbell, another former player that I remember, now that I think about it, he was a tight end.
On him. I vaguely on that one.
Yeah. But what do you think? Are we winning this one? Are we taking it to the Lions in Ford Field week 4?
What's weird about this is, Brendan, for a passing league, 3 of your first 4 games minimum are going to be running battles. It's going to be like you could end up with 60 carries or something like that between the two teams as far as their amount of rushes in these games, because you got teams that are committed to running the football, and who's going to stop the run better, who's going to be able to run the ball better. And it really does, again, come back to not being about the quarterback position, but really about that. The Lions are a little more unpredictable in their season this year because of the fact they're building up. They're on that path to trying to reach a point of ascent that I've talked about, and you don't know when you're quite there. It has been a couple of years now. It's about time. The cake's about baked. It should be about due at this point. They're going to be a tough matchup. I don't think it's going to be an easy one, Brendan, as well as I believe it is indeed a 10 a.m. game. But I'm going to go ahead and still give the W to my Hawks here.
I think I agree. My thing with the Lions is they still don't have their quarterback of the future. They're still holding on to the stopgap, which I know last year was not a good quarterback class at all, and I get it. But there were opportunities to get a guy who at least had a chance. They have nobody on that roster who has any kind of a chance. The guy they had starting against us last year, Tim Boyle was his name, I think. Like, he's gone, and he never had much of a chance anyway. But
I thought Goff started against us last year.
No, Goff was injured for that game. They started Tim Boyle, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But he's not even there anymore. So it's hard for me to take it all that seriously when they still got Goff out there. But they're building a nice little foundation. I do agree with that. They've got some nice stuff going on over there. Kind of off topic, but do they still have Jeffrey Okudah? Is he even still on the team?
He is, but this year he's coming off the torn ACL from last year. And before the torn ACL, he was still highly underperforming. So, I mean, it's
party's over.
Well, I mean, here's the thing and I'm on record with this. I had my buddy on who's at the time, this was a couple of years ago, doing the draft coverage on it. And my buddy's he won a championship at lower college level as a safety. So he really knows his cornerbacks. And we were looking at, up and down through that year, and that him is the first one. We were both scratching our head after looking at the tape, going, why is he by far and away this guy everybody's telling us should be a top 5 cornerback? He's not particularly big, not particularly long. He's not particularly athletic. He's, in a lot of ways, you can see he's really just ultimate refined out his technique to the maximum at the college level for the gifts that he's been given. And there's not going to be a lot of progression in technique beyond that point. He is going to be as fast and as quick as he is. And now he's robbed of a torn ACL after this, and he was playing poorly before that. I think that assessment has still fits pretty right on at this point.
Yeah. I don't know what happened there. That's a weird one. I remember that was a weird one at the time, and it's even weirder now. But sounds like the party is pretty much over there. But
he's playing good.
Feeling...
He is playing good this preseason, according to reports. Take that for what you will.
Okay. Well, I mean, Geno Smith is the best quarterback in the league in the preseason, according to PFF too. So maybe both things will end up being true.
Hey, PFF will ultimately be the one laughing last in that one.
Okay. So I think we're going to beat the Lions as well. I think it's going to be a relatively interesting game, but I'm going to say we get the win in Detroit. Move to 2-2, year 3-1. Week 5. This is interesting one. We're going to, it's not the Superdome anymore, but I'm going to keep calling it the Superdome. I'm going to try to speak it into existence. The Saints.
Got to keep those old school names, man. This has got to come back at some point where they're like, bring back the old names. It would be awesome if it was just something intimidating. That's the way to go. Look, back-to-back weeks, 10 a.m., Brendan. You got to fly out to Detroit, 10 a.m. early game. Fly all the way back, then go back out the next week, 10 a.m. out to New Orleans. New Orleans is a team I think some people are sleeping on just a little bit to a degree. They've had a couple of injury things, if I'm not mistaken. Not injury things, but they're a little bit in a tougher shape right now than they were even a month ago or when we did this list. Because you got Gardner that they traded out, right? They had a thing with they couldn't get the negotiations. They had no money to spend, so they had to just trade him just wholly out. And then they had Penning go down, and Penning is supposed to go down until late November, I believe. November is what I believe.
They're saying he may not be back this year, but that might be good for them. I'm just going to put that out there now.
it may, but remember, he's filling in for the guy that left in free agency for the Dolphins, Teron Armstead. So they don't exactly have that same kind of awesome plan in the offensive line, and they're going to have to try to run the ball and play defense like they were last year, frankly, when Jameis was there before. That's what they were already kind of assimilating to versus the old pass-happy attack side of things. But they got Thomas back. They got Olave from Ohio State. Kamura, I don't know what's going to happen on the suspension on that. I've not heard what. I think they've got that. He's got that prolonged, I think, a little bit, or we might hear
he's going to play, it seems like. I don't feel like he has a ton left in the tank, personally. Like, I'm looking at him and I'm going, he's at that, 1,300 touches level.
Yeah.
So once you get to that point, it's you drop off. So I'm expecting him to drop off.
It's fairly well, sir. You hit that spot, and you got to be a pretty different guy to be able to keep going past that point and still being a highly productive guy. So I think their offense will be tough to deal with. I think 10 a.m. I think defensively they're very good as well. They're just very solid all across the board. They added the Honey Badger this offseason. Jarvis Landry, I think, is there too. They added as a receiver, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds right. Yeah.
So they've done some things to kind of help themselves with the loss of Sean Payton and with where the quarterback position is. I'm going to give this as a win to the Saints.
So you're saying that Jameis Winston's going to eat the W? He's
going to eat that with all of his fingers all at once. And not do the finger, it's going to be just 3 into his mouth. I'm not going to do it because I don't want somebody taking a screenshot, but that's what it's going to be.
Right. That's a good plan, by the way. You
got to protect yourself, Brandon. You got to protect yourself. These guys got their screenshot settings hot keyed up on those keyboards. They knew.
Well, I just don't know how we score against that Saints defense. This is what happened last year. I don't think it's going to be radically different. We could
at home.
Yeah. We had one big play, I'm not going to call it a fluke, but one fluky play, 87-yard touchdown or whatever, and then it was night. Now, Myers did not help our case, but Myers is still here, and I don't think he's going to be better this year, so I'm not really feeling great about having to bet on him to bail us out. And I'm going to go with a low-scoring game, 20-10 or something. I think the Saints take it. And a loss. We're both on the same wavelength there.
Oh yeah.
Okay, here's one. Week 6, hosting the Cardinals, last game of the D-Hop suspension. Probably still getting Kyler Murray because he won't be injured yet. No Colt McCoy. What do you
Hollywood
got?
Brown will be injured by that point, though. His little spindly butt's going to be hurting for something on that. Let's see. We've got finally week after a lot. For me, this is a week after a loss on my particular schedule. I've got him as a 3-2 team at this point. So you got this team at this point trying to fight after a loss, trying to bounce back the week after. You're at home. I'm going to go ahead and I like everybody in this division, Niners to Rams, but I just not as high on where the Cardinals are. I don't understand what it is defensively they've done to put themselves together to believe that anyone should have any kind of confidence in what they've done there. Buda Baker's fine. Simmons has never really developed. They took a middle linebacker last year who was all right in his first year. Wasn't amazing, all right. And then you got J.J. Watt there, who's good for 6-7 games, maybe at most a season. So what other than that do they really have? Can you name it? What's another defensive player? Those guys I just named, who's another defensive player they have that you can name off the top of your head?
They bring back Patrick Peterson?
No.
Yeah. See, that was like years.
You're thinking
ago,
of Malcolm Butler. You're thinking Malcolm Butler, who retired.
Yeah. Malcolm Butler retired. I knew that one. I had heard about that one. Man. Chandler Jones is gone. Yeah,
Kennard's gone.
There was that safety they re-signed, Thompson, that they gave him like $40 million.
You scraped deep in the bucket on that one, Brendan. You had to go.
Well, he got $40 million.
Hey, no, it's valid. It's valid, but it goes to show you it's hard. It'd be hard for me to do the same. I'd be sitting here going, isn't Jordan Hicks still there, or did they? No. So it's the same way for me. And I look at that defense and go, it's not enough. I think their offense is going to still be good. Thankfully, we don't have Hopkins in this one. Josh Jones is coming along for them, the kid they took out of Houston a couple years ago at the tackle position. He's starting to kind of round out here in this preseason, look good. And he was a guy I liked a lot coming out. So I'm still pretty. They got Hudson still there at center. They've got a little bit of some stuff going their offensive line wise that can work you through. But Hopkins, of course, as we both believe, I think it's very much almost the engine that makes that offense run.
Right. A big step back last year when he got hurt, definitely.
100%. So I'll go win the Seahawks here on this one at home.
Yeah, I'm going to say we win it as well. Largely same reasons. We're getting them at a good time. No D-Hop. But possibly, like you said, no Hollywood Brown. J.J. Watt might be injured by this point. Like at this point, it's becoming predictable.
Yeah.
And I think we'll be able to run the ball on them. And if this team can run the ball, I think they can do big things. And another prediction that I had for this season, by the way, which I believe I mentioned last week when we were talking, was we're going to have 2 players with over 1,000 yards from scrimmage in our backfield, Penny and Walker. So I do think those 2 guys are going to be significant portions of our offense this year.
Agreed. I mean, I don't know if they'll get to 2,000, but I do think that they'll be very close to it, if not that.
So that would be another one of my predictions for this year as well for individual players. And I think in a game like this one, it's just going to power you to the victory. So yeah, I'm going to say we beat the Cardinals. I say 3-3. You are now 4-2. And that takes us to week 7 in LA playing the Chargers. And were it not for the fact that they're the Chargers, I would believe that this Chargers team is about ready to just run an absolute freight train on the rest of the league this year. They're doing things absolutely the right way while Herbert's on that rookie contract. I love the way they're attacking it. And I think it's just going to be too much to handle. It's going to be too much to handle for this new look defense. They can attack you on so many different levels. They got a quarterback who can make all the throws, and that defense should take a big step up, adding Khalil Mack. And he's now in a role where he can be a secondary pass rusher instead of the main guy. So I'm not foreseeing a lot of positive things happening in this game. So I'm going to say they get us by a few scores.
Yeah, as you said, the Chargers have done so many things right. You can think of the name players that stand out to you as you start to think about it in your mind. You're like Khalil Mack and Bosa and J.C. Jackson. They signed this offseason, one of the best man corners in the game that fits to perfectly what they want to do defensively. And then you got Derwin James. And I like the linebacker Murray they took out of Oklahoma, who's coming along in that respect of things. Then you go offensively, Mike Williams and the Cal kid, whose name I can never damn well remember. Keenan Allen, who's been very good for them, Austin Eckler. But then we got to, that's like before we even get to the offensive line, which has also been very, like, they added, we both love Zion Johnson. Hey, they got Zion Johnson, and they got Rashawn Slater in there, and they were building the line even outside, Rashawn Slater in there. And then they built the line even outside of that. So they've got the line, everything is really set up for them. I think this game for me is the game where we get a little bit outdistanced fairly well. I think we're pretty close in all of these initial games. The Niner game might be a 10-point type loss, like you said, I think something, or I could see it being in more in that neighborhood, but this one probably a 2-touchdown loss.
Yeah. And the thing about the Chargers that people always talk about whenever we talk about them in like my streams and stuff is the coach. I think it's important to remember he was a first-year coach last year. He's going to learn. He's going to get better. Yeah. And I think that jump for him from the first year to the second year is going to also significantly help that team's bottom line in a way, even maybe beyond just the players.
Yeah, the young coach is the one to me, unless they're the Josh McDaniels wired way too type, which I don't get that impression off this guy that they got at the Chargers, is that they're more amendable to change. It's the older guys, I think, and that are more, especially when they've had a lot of success, who are like, you'll move me off a spot when you kill me. Like, this is my spot. And I think he's going to understand, looking at, okay, maybe less of the fourth down stuff. Okay, maybe instead of having Justin throw all these balls behind the line of scrimmage, I don't know, maybe have him push the ball up the field. And I think he's going to learn those lessons greater, to your point on that. I do.
Okay, we're coming back home for week 8 to play the Giants. That's a team that's in a very, they're kind of at the bottom of the curve right now. They're kind of they hit rock bottom last year. They probably got one more year staying down there. So they're right at the bottom of the ocean, and maybe next year they can start coming up.
They're sort of rolling around down there, because they say, well, once you hit bottom, there's nowhere to go but up. But the Giants are finding a way to roll around.
So, what you got for this one? What are you thinking?
I'm going Seahawks blowout. My first Seahawks blowout of the year. They get stomped the week before by the Chargers. A little bit of a pride check. Come back home. New York's got a long way to travel. It feels like we've done pretty well historically in Seattle against New York when they've come into town. So I'm gonna say we really put it to them in that game. Daniel Jones to me I've never been high on him. I mean, every time I watch him, there's nothing about him that is yet to impress me. I don't think they've done nearly enough on that offensive line quite yet. That's coming along. I'll give him that. It's coming along, but I think it's going to take still a couple years for Dable to get his stuff in point like he had it in Buffalo with Allen.
Yeah, this strikes me as a big-time throwaway year. Like, this team may have been the worst team in the league last year. Record aside,
yeah,
that team was depressing down the stretch. And they were up against the cap. They had no money to do anything. So I don't know why anything is going to be radically better. Now, they did make, I think, a significant upgrade at coach, but it's not his players. It's a bunch of guys that other people worked to bring in. He's got, some rookies. He's got some new rookies. And he's getting to turn the page on a few players, like they cut Blake Martinez. But it's definitely a game that you look at going, okay, 3-hour plane trip for the Giants. Really bad roster. Not a whole lot they can do to make it better. Yeah, you would expect the Seahawks to just kind of take care of business. Even if they're not a good team this year, they could be like the good, bad team, where they're good enough to beat down on all the really bad teams, but They can't really get anything done against the actual real teams. So yeah, I'm going to say Seahawks find a way to win. I believe that puts them at 4-4, and you're at 5-3.
That's right.
Okay. Ryan Woldridge, thank you for the $2. Is Lazard going to play for the Packers versus Vikings? I don't know. I did hear that he's now on the injury report, but I'm not the person you should be asking about that, because I have my own problems rooting for my team. So I haven't heard anything about this. You?
Is he going to play for the Packers versus the Vikings? I haven't heard anything either on that. I would imagine that even if he's halfway able to get himself up to steam, though, I'll give you some insider info. I'll give him some, because he paid some money to Brendan. I'll give him some inside info on this one. The Green Bay Packers are the only team in the league that does not use Toradol. So when you got that little hankering of pain because they're trying to protect, they're doing for good use. They try and protect their players, so it's for a good thing. They're doing a noble deal. But when you're in a little bit of pain and you're this close to getting back on the field, many of those guys, of course, ascribe to that toward all who do get into pain. Maybe that's enough to hold them out there for another game there.
Okay, that's actually really interesting. The only team out of 32 teams, they're the only one.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting one. Okay, so week 9, we're going to Arizona. We just played them earlier, a few weeks prior. We're going to Arizona to play them again in week 9, the Cardinals. And in that terrible, terrible stadium, are things going to be different than they were for us in week 6?
Well, Seahawks fans take over that stadium. Like, let's not forget that. It does kind of serve like almost a de facto home game when we play in Arizona. I mean, like, we got to now look, the field surface is cursed for our players, but we do have the fans in the stadium, right? I'm not out of whack on that one. So, DeAndre Hopkins is back.
Tyler might be out. He might be injured by this point. We're getting Colt McCoy.
He's got his money now, Brennan. If he gets a little boo-boo, if that little hobbit gets a little stub in those little toes, he's gonna be sitting. He is. I said I was gonna be down to 7 wins here. I'm not getting down to 7 wins if I keep packing on wins, and there's gonna be one of these that I can't think of that turns. We always split with them, Brendan, even when we're good and bad. When we're good and when we're bad, we always seem like we're just good to split with the Cardinals. I'm gonna go split. They got Hopkins back, and he's enough with Hopkins on Tariq one too many times.
Yeah, I have to agree. I'm not feeling this one. It just seems like the wrong team at the wrong time. Whether or not they'll admit it, they're looking ahead to that Tampa Bay game in Germany the next week, which we'll get to in a second here. But yeah, I just feel like the Cardinals, I will say this, though, the Cardinals are the team that starts strong and fades at the end. So maybe they'll be fading by week 9 already. At Texas Tech, his team's always faded after the first few games.
That's about the spot they usually start to click in that ignition fade switch. So maybe so. It's possible. And look, their defense could be, there's a real high potentiality. Their defense could be almost at not atrocious, but one of the league worst defenses when this all shakes out. If it doesn't get the development from some very key positions, and if there's another injury there with Watt, so that's also a bit. If you run into if their offense is great, well, great, but your defense is just paper mache.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm going to loss as well. Just doesn't feel right to sweep the Cardinals.
No,
and that takes us to week 10, Tampa Bay over in Germany. First time we've been overseas in a few years, and we're playing a team that at the time of the schedule announcement, we may have been hoping was going to be fielding some Blaine Gabbert type at quarterback, but not the case. Not the case.
Well, Giselle may try to divorce Tom yet. So let's keep that door open. Okay. Let's keep that kettle on the pot.
Yeah. I mean, if she did, wouldn't that make him want to play more? Because now he won't have her telling him, stop playing football. You're going to get killed.
No, because he'll have longing, Brendan. He'll be stuck. He'll be struck with the longing of knowing it's not hers, and she's down there in South America doing salsa with God knows who, and it's going to drive him crazy. So I think it would affect him. That's our only hope here at this point. That's our only hope.
Man, remember Dennis Quaid's wife from Any Given Sunday?
I do. Yeah. I forget who played the actress on that, but I remember.
Yeah. It was basically like the Ricky Bobby thing. She was like, the man I married is not a thinker. He's a football player. Yeah. You get on that football field. If you retire, I'm going to like.
Oh, he's got a broken back too. His like back's literally broken, I think, in the movie.
Yeah. So what do you got for us, man? You feeling anything positive in this Tampa Bay game?
It's a little bit like the San Diego game. You're just kind of outclassed, I think, a little bit from the talent level. I mean, to give some hope on the other side of it, Ndamukong Suh, Jason Pierre-Paul, OJ Howard, those guys have moved on at this point. They're hoping for Tyron. I can't say his name. He's tried to change his name since college, the UW kid that they drafted high in the first round. They're hoping he can take over some of those pass rushing duties. They've had some injuries / the retirement to the offensive line. And I think a big key of an opening in this game of where the vulnerability lies, where the scale is missing on this particular Dragon, is going to be that offensive line. If your pass rush can be a bit of a vibrant one at that point. But the key with Tom is that you can't blitz him. You've got to get the pass rush with the front four. And a big part of what we're trying to do from our defensive stylings this year is to get pressure with more than just the front four. I mean, that's, to me, I do come back and say it's probably a loss. Maybe the Germans can help. Maybe they leave such a stadium is so raucous. It's a raucous stadium.
It sounds like we're going to have a decent turnout of fans in Germany from what I've seen on the Facebook groups.
We're hot in Germany, Brendan. We're hot.
Yeah. This kind of feels like the kind of game where we're just going to run the ball for 1.5 yards a carry against Vita Vea. Like, you know how this offense can be sometimes, especially when you don't have a quarterback. It's just hard. You want to, Pete wants to just keep running the ball into that brick wall, and with a quarterback like Gino, who can totally blame him. But this is not the game to be doing that. This is the game to challenge that secondary. And I don't think we are going to have the quarterback to do it. So I'm seeing a double-digit loss for sure.
I agree. It's a team that's a bad styling matchup. Like, for your point there, being that it is a defense that, though it has been good about getting after the passer with guys like Barrett and Vita Vea and JPP and Sue, they've done that with those front four guys, and they're going to, because they need to protect a little bit of their coverage stuff on the back end, that you can gash them in the coverage game. But against the run, they've been straight across the board up until this point for the last few years. And so I think you're just going to brick walls way to go on that one.
Okay, then we hit our bye week, and then we get to a game that I'm very, very conflicted on. Week 12, we've got the Las Vegas Raiders at home, coming off that bye week. I'll tell you, last time we did this, I actually said this is the game that we steal. This is the game that we play a team better than us, a team that has a better season than us, a team with just better players than us, and we find a way. I think the Raiders were a little overhyped. I still do a little bit. I'm coming off that a little bit now after seeing the team in the preseason. They didn't quite move me in the right direction there. So I said win earlier, and I still think there's something good that can happen here because we're coming off that bye week. But I'm going to have to flip this over, I think. I think this is going to be a loss now.
Yeah, I think I got to land with you on this one. Josh McDaniels is going to come there and bring a lot of those short passing elements that he had proliferate that offense in New England over these years. And as we've seen historically speaking, Coach Carroll's defenses tend to have a little bit of a vulnerability when it comes to the short passing game. And those teams that truly will commit to it full stop all the way, like they don't have to mix in that deep ball shot. They can just sit there and hit you with the 5 and 6 yard routes all day long. And they've got the players with Renfro and Adams and Waller to be able to attack you and go after weaknesses in your coverage at that point to pull it off. So I don't think that's a way we're going to be able to pull that one off almost from that aspect of things. Defensively, certainly Chandler Jones and Max Crosby are your issues, 2 really good pass rushers on either side against 2 rookies. That's going to be a scary. We're going to be talking about that week going. This is going to be a little scary for these boys this week. Like they're getting 2 full meal deal compliment, pass rushers. There's nowhere to run. You can't help them out consistently either because you got them both needing a little bit of help from time to time. It's just another, I think it's just a tough matchup. That AFC West is a pretty brutal division.
Yeah. Best receivers in the league over in Las Vegas, you think? Let's say pass catchers so we can include Waller. What do you think? Yeah.
Best collection. Yeah, probably the best collection with those 3 guys. You'd be hard pressed to find. I mean, who would even come into second place at that point?
Miami. Like they've got Tyreek, they've got Waddle, who had almost 100 catches last year.
Gesicki. He's pretty good. So that's a good little triumphant there. Yeah, that's probably them. That'd probably be them. I feel like there was one team we're missing here. That's name is escaping me. I don't know. Can't think of it. But
Guile G, thank you for the $4.99. We can get A-Rod. Not anymore. He's if you're talking about the A-Rod that I think you're talking about, he's got the biggest contract in NFL history over there in Green Bay. So I doubt that very much.
There is an out. So I've heard this. There is a soft sort of like out next year, like a mutual out, I think, for player in the team next year, if I remember correctly. Could be off on that, but I believe that's what I heard with that. So
he's old. It's not impossible.
Yeah. Somebody asked about that on my chat the other night too. The only way I could see it happening is, here's the thing we have to acknowledge, Brendan. We sent a plane for Manning back in the day. We tried to recruit Manning on Allen's private plane. So that does mean the Carroll Schneider combination is open to the aging quarterback and bringing them in concept, that they're not adverse to it, just to simply to look to the young guy. But why would Aaron want to come here at this point? Certainly the weather in I still want to call it CenturyLink, Lumen Field is remarkably better than you're going to get out there in the snow. But and he is on the West Coast. He's a West Coast guy. That's probably where he wants to be closer to. But hard to see it as a fit, even with
I agree.
A couple things there.
Yeah, let's stay on this path that we're on. Let's just stick it to this path of getting the rookie quarterback next year. How about that? What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Brother Abe, thank you for the $1.99. Appreciate you. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, so that moves us to week 13, and we're playing the Super Bowl champions in their stadium, the Los Angeles Rams. And I mean, the Rams have been the problem for a while now, and I don't think that's going to change yet. Obviously, part of the problem was that Wilson never played that well against them, and he's not here anymore. But I don't know if I can expect the quarterbacks that we have to do all that much better. I think the Rams have done a pretty good job of not losing anything massive from last year. They lost Robert Woods, but I think they probably upgraded a little bit with Allen Robinson. They lost a couple other pieces as well. I don't want to Woodworth. I don't want to completely diminish the effect of Eric Weddle retiring, but they do have a healthy secondary now. So, they've replaced him but with guys who are already on the team. So I am going to have to stick with the loss here. I just don't see that changing yet.
No, I don't either. They've had an off season where they've still been an all in for it kind of approach. That's frankly, I'm a little envious of, in the way that they've come off a Super Bowl win, but still put the pedal even further down to the floor, almost, so to speak, from how they're spending money and the creative way they found a way around the cap through guaranteed money versus bonus money, and putting that in just varying portions in a contract. So I'm hard to not say that this team's going to be still right where they were last year. They've maybe built a more stronger team coming into this year than what they were last year, outside of Whitworth's loss, which will hurt. I don't know if they have an exact replacement there, Brendan, for him, this guy will be fine. Like, they're just fine. This guy will come in there. That could become a bit of an issue point for them, but they have a pretty good offensive line around from that. They get the full year of Cam Akers this year, which they didn't have last year. It's just a bit too much. And Allen Robinson's a dog. It's a guy, I think he had at one point, Brendan, didn't he, for like a couple of years there, have like the least amount of catchable throws thrown his way because of the quarterback position play in Chicago for a few years.
Yeah, that sounds about right. He had that Odell syndrome kind of going on.
Yeah,
just when he was in Cleveland.
And now you get Stafford that's going to put it right there on him. I mean, it's kind of scary. Stafford's shown in the past with receivers, he can get a lot out of you if you got some talent. And I think he's going to, again, too, Brendan, it's like, it's not even, doesn't change anything Kupp does. Kupp just keeps doing his same stuff. Allen just goes the outside. You're not bringing this guy in to do so. Like, everybody gets to still do their same old things. It's just you're moving him in the Odell role, basically.
Okay, let's move on because this is depressing. It is. It just is.
It is, dude. It pisses me off. It's so annoying.
Yeah. All right. Week 14, we're hosting the Carolina Panthers. They're coming cross country to take us on. The game takes place after Halloween, so Sam Darnold's going to be out of commission because of all the ghosts, right?
Oh yeah.
So
Darnold's down. You mean Baker?
No. Well, wait, is Darnold out for the year?
I thought he was out for the year. I thought it was a torn ACL.
Wow. Okay. Dang. Okay. So we're really not going to get him. It's going to be Baker.
All Baker all the time.
And
no Corral either.
Yeah, Matt Corral, Coral. I guess we don't have to learn how to pronounce it now.
I'll never learn his name right because I was right about him.
Yeah. The Liz Frank injury. I haven't heard that one in a little while, it feels like.
It's a treacherous one. It's just simply anything named more French in a medical term means it's already going to be way more vicious and gruesome.
Yeah. So Carolina has to come a long way to play us. I don't see a lot going on with that team that I like. There was a period of time when their defense looked really promising, but that's already seems like it's starting to fade. Brian Burns is nice. Derek Brown's okay. Nice little foundation on that defensive line. They got JC Horn, I think. Mm-hmm. He seems like he's going to be good, but little bit of shine has come off that apple, and I'm going to say we find a way. We ride the run game.
Yeah, their offensive line's also in really tough shape, I think. I think their defense could come back to a little bit more of a prominent point this year of where it was a couple of years ago. I think Burns was fighting through some injuries last year. Brown, to your point, though, he's got picked top 10. He's not been a top 10 defensive tackle in this league. He's been fine, but he's not been a, impact game-changing player. But offensively, to me, it's they're really hoping McCaffrey can last a full year and just be basically their bread and butter along with DJ Jones on the outside over on the other edge of things. And I don't think that's going to be enough for them with where their offensive line is, where their lack of talent is at the tight end position. I think we're going to be too much for them.
Yeah. There's no way McCaffrey's healthy by week 14. There's just
because they're going to be, they're going to be using the hell out of him through the first half of the season, trying to stay in it. Right. So by the time you get to him, he's going to be like, he's tired. He's got bruises all up and down his body.
Yeah, death taxes and CMAC not playing a full season. It's just not going to happen.
He's definite.
Paul Third, thank you for the $5. Rams are worse than last year. Don't forget their coaching losses. Von Miller, OBJ gone, bad draft replacements to retired linesmen. The Von Miller thing is a good point. That is a significant loss.
Well, I mean,
they drafted Cole Strange in, what was it, the 3rd round or something?
That's New England.
Wait, then they drafted somebody that I thought was bad.
It was a weird draft. They had a weird draft, Paul. There's no doubt that they had the weird draft. Remember with Von Miller, you had him for half a year. There's nothing that's holding them back from going out and making another Von Miller trade halfway into the season. They did it once, they can go do that again. They don't necessarily need the full year of the Von Miller experience to make that happen. Though I will give you that's a big lot. That's bigger than the OBJ one to me. But OBJ is the same way. You had him for the back end run of the schedule. Basically, you had gone through a lot of your schedule doing just fine without those two guys. And again, OBJ, Allen Robinson is an upgrade to me over OBJ. Allen Robinson just doesn't have the shine of OBJ because he never played in New York and he never had a quarterback that could throw him the ball right. So he's an upgrade for sure. And again, they didn't have any Cam Akers last year as well, Paul. Remember, Cam Akers tore his ACL or his Achilles in preseason. He didn't play a snap to them to the very end of the year in the playoffs. So maybe they're even. I'll even go down to even state, but I don't think that they've taken necessarily a step back.
Yeah. I mean, there needs to be a Von Miller out there to trade for. There's not always going to be that Von Miller. Like this year, a lot of people think Robert Quinn could be that guy because he's on a terrible Bears team, but there's no guarantee you're going to be able to get the Von Miller. So I that's a valid point.
I think what separates them though with it is they're a team willing to overpay. I mean, the Von Miller trade last year worked out, and so no one questions it at this point. But Brendan, they gave up a 2nd and 3rd round pick for what was going to be potentially 10 games of Von Miller.
Oh yeah. I mean, in terms of actually what you got, it's a terrible trade, but if that's what you needed to get over the top, then so be it.
But that's my point. Is they'll come back to that this next year, and let's say Robert Quinn's on the market, and let's throw the same trade out there. Let's say there's some team out there that's competitive. That's like, we like Vaughn, we'll give you a 2nd. Well, what's to hold them back from just blowing that team out of that water with their offer, really coming past it in a way that they're not even willing to come close to? Because they're like, who cares? Everyone already knows we don't care about draft picks, and this has worked out for us before. I think it'll only embolden them and only make them more aggressive to make that kind of move down the stretch.
You're probably right about that. It just depends on, is the guy available, and somebody else could come out and outbid you. Maybe other teams are looking at what the Rams did and they're like, hey, let's do that. Screw draft picks.
And to your point, last year we had money to spend. I think Schneider was thinking he was going to do a trade deadline deal and then got to the trade deadline, and a guy like Jason Kelsey wasn't available like he was thinking prospectively could have been. And he's like, well, I'm just not going to just spend it to spend it, but I thought somebody was going to be here. And I think that definitely could break out that way as well. Especially that extra game messes the playoff deadline up, messes that deadline up now, because there's all those teams that think they're kind of still in it, even when they're in that 2-4 phase, where in the past they might've been like, all right, sell the shop, put the closing sign soon thing up. We got to go with it. As opposed to now, they're kind of like, well, it's a long year. We could still maybe right this ship.
That makes sense to me. I don't want to go too long on this, but I kind of feel like the reason why the Seahawks did what they did last year was because they had already decided we're going to move Wilson after the year. So let's not overextend ourselves for this year, because I feel like the decision had already kind of been made.
I would be with you on that, except for the voidable years. because you put the voidable year contract, and you could make the argument that something changed after the point they did those voidable years to where they made that determination. I'll be with you on that. But I think at the time that you made those voidable year contracts, the intention was at the trade deadline, we'll do something. Definitely could have changed where you saw something from Russell at that point through going, yeah, no, we're just going to let that money flow. But you wouldn't have done the voidable deals if you were, just looking to roll the cap. I think you would have just done it on the front end of it.
Yeah, that I agree with. I don't think the decision was made until after Russ got hurt and after you started out bad. We were 2-5 at one point, and when the trade deadline came around, I do think the team was like, we're probably not gonna make the playoffs this year anyway at this point, and I truly do think that Pete was looking at it like, I don't think Russ is the guy anymore, so let's not overextend ourselves. Let's just whatever happens. I do think we put in an offer for OBJ that was actually more than what the Rams offered, and he still went to the Rams. I will say that.
Yeah.
But I believe there were opportunities to get players like, say, a Stephon Gilmore, and they just decided, next year.
Potentially with it. I mean, we don't know for sure with it. The thing with Gilmore is that he wanted to go home because that was Carolina too. There was a little bit of that. But You're right. Maybe if we were willing to throw I know before that's what New England was asking, like a first round pick for the guy. So if we had been really willing to just step up, and that was a part of it too, is we didn't want to go up the draft capital as far as they wanted to go. That was probably a bit of it as well. So it's, it's murky.
Okay, we got 4 games left in the season. Let's go to the 49ers at home, week 15, Thursday night football. Always good to be playing your Thursday night games at home, I think. I think that's a bigger advantage than any other game. But the 49ers, if history has shown us anything, they may be clicking into place about this time of the year. So what do you think? What do you got?
I've got it as a loss by this point. I do think there's a good chance you're looking at Garoppolo by this game, because I'm not sure if Trey's going to be able to last the whole season. I'm not sure the Niners believe Trey's going to last the whole season. I don't
Brock
think
Purdy?
No, Brock Purdy. I think they're gonna hope that Lance takes that step forward, but they've got this insurance policy in Jimmy G, and it's gonna be one of those things they pull that policy out very quickly. The second little fire starts in the kitchen, just a little flame. That's just a candle, No, get Jimmy with the fire hose. Or he's got more of a fire extinguisher, right? Jimmy's not a hose; he's more of an extinguisher guy. But unfortunately, again, I just think the Niners are in that mode right now. You said it best. They were a couple plays away from getting the Super Bowl. They were a play or two away a couple years ago from winning a Super Bowl. They've got a very good team on top of having the star power. They're a little bit top heavy, as are the Rams. It doesn't seem to hold them back, but they are a little bit top heavy. Their tackle position is great with McGlinchey and Trent Williams. Overall, McGlinchey's a little up and down in certain realms, but the inside of their line, it's very sketch, where the rest what's the center position retires. You got the left guard, Laken Tomlinson, moves on to the Jets as a free agent. Now you're moving in the kid you drafted last year from Notre Dame, whose tape I hated, Brendan. I hated his tape. The kid they drafted at Notre Dame. Maybe he's improved. Brooks or something. I think it's Brooks or something like that.
I can't remember the name, but yeah.
It wasn't good tape. He was really lost. And especially in pass blocking, that's where they're going to be really challenged when they do have to throw the ball and being able to keep their protections clean. They're an offensive line built to run block, but that defensive line is so good. Linebackers are so good. I don't have as much faith in their corner or safety position outside of Jimmy Ward, but I think that they'll be enough to carry the day in 2 games. Both them and then the Rams this year for me are going to probably sweep us.
Yeah, it's not fun, but it is what it is.
Yeah. I wish I could be more optimistic on it, but I want to be real about it.
Okay, week 16. Here's another big sledgehammer to the face. We're going to Arrowhead.
At 10 in the morning. A sledgehammer to the face at 10 in the morning.
Yeah, no Tyreek Hill, I guess, but still, you look at it and you just go, at this point in the year, by the way, there's I think a very good chance that you've got Tariq Woolen starting. If he isn't already starting by the start of the year, by that point, he could easily be Kobe Bryant. Like, you've got 2 rookie corners out there. You've got rookie defensive ends or pass rushers against that offense. and Andy Reid, you know they're going to do something to take advantage. So, yeah, I'm going to just say it straight up, not feeling this one.
You flipped out Tyreek. You flipped out Tyreek Hill, in my opinion. You flipped in a Julian Edelman type with Skye Moore, who they drafted in this draft. Ran as good a routes as anybody in college football last year. Fast, great hands. He's been tearing up camp there for them as well, looking really good. They took the guy from the Packers, who's not necessarily the star, but kind of a big play guy. So they've got sort of the amalgamation of Tyreek Hill between those two guys on top of what they already had. And let's not forget, Brendan, they went through the growing pains last year of rebuilding a whole offensive line in one off season. And then, okay, we're going to try this all at once with all new parts, and went through those bumps to get to now year 2, where now you get the second year returns, as though it starts to get a little bit more cohesion going on there, in my opinion. And that to me, that they're going to be better on an offensive line standpoint. They've got enough guys on the skill position players to do justice out there. Sometimes with Reed, some out of just commit to the running game, my man. He just doesn't want to commit to that running game. Are you buying the hype on this? Are you buying the hype on Mahomes' shade that he's been getting recently? That's been a bit odd for me this offseason, watching some of the pundits talk about it as far as dropping down these boards is where he ranks, and he's no longer in the top 1 or 2. Oh no, he's down like 5 or 6 or something.
I mean, he's hosted the AFC title game 4 seasons in a row. I don't know what else you want him to do. Yeah. Yes, he's not always the most accurate quarterback, but he makes up for that in other ways. Like, you're not going to have a quarterback that's literally just perfect in every single category. And yeah, I don't take anything away from him at all. I do think it's fair to say that his numbers may dip a little bit with no Tyreek, but they got a Juju as well, by the way. And I know everybody makes fun of Juju now, but that guy put up some big numbers not that long ago.
Yeah. No, I mean, he's still got some, he's a young kid too. Remember, he came out 21 years old. He was very young. So he's only 25 years old as Juju, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm with you on that. I think he's one of the best, probably 2 quarterbacks in the sport. And I'm not with it on the shade aspect of it. I think he's going to have another return to form kind of year this year with that offensive line settling into place. And the defense, they've done some things to bring in some extra pass rushers. It's not just Frank Clark, Chris Jones, and Jerron Reed. Now George Karlaftis came in there. I think they got Ebiketie, if I'm not mistaken. It's not Ebiketie. They got there was one other guy they got in there.
Oh, Falcons. Didn't the Falcons?
The Falcons got Ebiketie. Yeah, Falcons got Ebiketie, and there was another guy they brought in, solid. Carlos, it was Carlos Dunlap, and then there's somebody else they brought in where they got a little bit more of depth now to their pass rush. So they can send a little more of the waves at you, I feel like, too, which is going to help them when they get up in games, which it's going to be times with Andy Reid and the way he runs, just like Holmgren used to. Holmgren could get up on teams, but he'd let him back into it. Reid's a little bit of cut from that same cloth, and then you've got the defense now really press those teams down when they do get up from them. This is a loss, though, bottom line.
Yeah, definitely. Not rolling into Kansas City and getting anything easy. No. Week 17, New Year's Day, hide your middle-aged women because Zach Wilson and the New York Jets are coming to town.
I'm keeping my mother at least 1,000 miles away from the stadium at any given time when he gets in near Seattle. When his flight path gets within the state confines, Mom, going to Hawaii.
Yeah. Is it bad that actually kind of made me like him more? Like, I don't know. I just respected it somehow.
Well, no, because then you got the whole he's got that dog in a meme, and then that thing just became funny too on top of it, because people look up and it's so hilarious because there's so much, that's my quarterback, and it was great for that. It was great for the memes, and it was very funny, and it's a little endearing. You think of him coming out of Utah, a little maybe buttoned up, and it's very straight laced and very, but instead he's got a little bit of wild man in him. Wild Man Street.
Yeah. We had this conversation a few months ago, but I'm kind of I really like what the Jets did this offseason. I just don't know if it's going to start paying dividends now or later. Mm-hmm. Zach Wilson did not look good last year. He, of all the rookie quarterbacks, probably, I would say, looked the worst. And I was a fan of his, but I wasn't too impressed. Now, it's a rookie year. He can get better, but yeah, I'm having a hard time with this Jets team. I really like what they did in the draft. They were very aggressive. I feel like they're on the right path, but I don't know if it's going to manifest itself this year. What do you think?
Yeah, I like the moves they make. I like the players they add. I don't know that I see it all coming together as this well-formed plan that all makes a ton of sense to me all the time. It's just like, well, it's a collection of good players in various areas is what I see a bit with this team. And they could be good this year, that things could start to come together there. I'm also not as big on Saleh as a coach. I'm a little bit of like, I'm just not as sold on him as some of the other people have been with him. Micah Becton going down for the year already. That's going to, put their offensive line a little bit further back. I never really was a big Wilson fan. He's one of those guys I come to, Brendan, and I go, this is another one of your fragile, small quarterbacks who keeps getting injured, and everybody wonders why. Why does the 6 foot, 195-pound quarterback keep getting injured? I just can't figure it out. God, it's just so strange. How does the 300-pound man falling on the 195-pound man all the time? Or, I know he's running in the open field when he tore his ACL this week, but like, he's in that mode for me where I don't think he gets it through. I don't think he gets through a full 17-game season on a typical season with the way he's built. Breece Hall was a great addition. My favorite running back in this draft was Breece. He's going to be awesome for them. They will do decently, I think, running game, but I just don't think they haven't. Denzel Mims hasn't developed enough. They've got him on the trade block right now. It's still a little bit of an, as you said, maybe a year out more phase of things, but not right now. They're not ready, especially on the road coming into Seattle.
Yeah, I played with the idea of giving the Jets a win here, but I think we're going to get this win after really thinking about it. Yeah, I mean, great draft, by the way. They got, I think, 3 guys I had in my top 15.
Mm-hmm.
I thought we're all going to go top 15. They got all 3 of them. But after thinking about it, I'm not sure they're all the way there yet. And that takes us to week 18. We're finishing off the season at home against the Rams. I think we all know where this is going.
Yes. Oh, it was Gardner, by the way. I think Gardner, Wilson, Jermaine Johnson, Breece Hall. Yeah, they had a great draft. Jeremy Ruckert and Max Mitchell, offensive line. They did great. They killed that draft, Brendan.
There we go. Yeah.
They killed that draft. Rams at home. Our only hope in this game is they've got the number 1 seed. And this is our hope, is if we're needing this game for the playoffs or whatever, is that they're trying to rest guys at that point. They've got a little bit of an older roster in certain spots. So they're not going to play all those guys. They don't need the game. They got the number 1 seed by that point. And then we can maybe slide through that final game by that method. But absent that, I've got, unfortunately, again, I'm not proud to say it, not happy to say it. Doesn't make me, I'm not a Niner fan or Ram fan for saying this, but they're unfortunately most likely both sweep our Seahawks this year.
Yeah, I got to agree with that. So I'm at 6-11. You're at 7-10 now, I think.
Yeah.
Sounds about right. I still don't think this team is going to be one of the worst teams in the league. I think they're going to be close if some injury bug hits us hard this year. I think they could become that 3 or 4 win team that a lot of people expect.
Sure.
But as of right now, assuming moderate health fortune, let's call it that, I think they're going to find a way to be bad, not really bad, not, cataclysmically bad, just kind of generically bad.
Yeah. I agree. Or even just somewhat on the outside of looking in on being middle of the road, where they're right on the edge of being into that middle of the road phase of things where they're sitting. And as I said too, there's a couple games here where if they slide back and forth away, the games we talked about, we know with the Chiefs and the Charger games that it is what it is. The Rams and maybe even the Niners to agree, but if you can split with the Niners, you can turn that Saints game, right? You can turn that Raiders game. We're talking about a couple game switch there to get you into that 9-10 win phase of things, which would then get you into the playoffs. That's where I do say that does exist on this schedule. I don't have a lot of hope against some of those teams, but the teams you would have some hope for if it swings in that way. And you, like you said, you beat up on the weak parts of the schedule and then take care of the tougher parts, but not the impossible parts. You could slide your way into on the other side of it as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think the team is terribly far away. I think that by the end of the year, we might be able to say we are a quarterback away, kind of like 2011.
Yeah.
2011, I mean, I know we all get sick of saying this year reminds me of year X when it comes to the Seahawks, because we always hear that with 2011 and 2012, but it may end up being a little like 2011. So before we go, let me hit you with a couple more.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think any Seahawks make the All-Pro team, first team or second?
I don't think anybody makes the first team All-Pro this year. I do think that you're going to see Jordan Brooks make second team All-Pro. but that's going to be all you see.
I think that's possible. I think he's going to put up the numbers for it. I see that's tough, right? Because based off what we saw last year, this guy can put up tackles like crazy. Like this guy might have a 200 tackle season in him at some point, especially with Cody Barton out there, probably not stealing a whole lot from him.
Right.
But is a massive tackle count going to get you to the All-Pro team? If it does, then yeah, I believe that could happen. I think that's reasonable.
Well, he'll get more. Look, the Will doesn't blitz in the 4-3 defense at all. How often do we ever get to see KJ Wright blitzing throughout his time here? You probably could count it on your hands. Now, how often do you get the chance to see Bobby Wagner blitz? Here, decent amount, better more than KJ, let's say, and especially in this new defense, which is supposed to try to blitz more. That's his pathway, and for me to get there is you're right about it's really going to be based more on him getting the tackles, but then if he can add in 5 or 6 sacks on the top of it in his blitz game, that also could then propel him a little bit more forward.
I'm going to say Michael Dixon makes All-Pro. I'm going to say...
I forgot about Nick.
I'm going to say first team, actually. Why not?
I'm with it.
He's going to be out there a lot.
Yeah, he'll have 110 punts. They'll give him it for that alone. They'll be like, my God, how are we not with this kid? And he'll have at that point, if he has like 100 punts, he's going to have like 35 inside the 20 just by the sheer volume of numbers that people will look at. Because, if the punters, you look at like the 2 stats points, you're like, what's his average? Inside the 20. That's all I need to see.
Right. Aaron Jacobs, thank you for the $10. Game 1 prediction. Wilson gets stuck in neutral. Geno to DK in the end zone over Surtain for the win.
Ooh.
I mean, you want to get people hyped. You want to get people
pumped
Aaron. Up for a week.
Let's go.
Let's make it happen.
Let's go, Aaron. I love it. I'm with Aaron on this one, Brendan. I'm with Aaron on this. Let's go.
I just hope it's us holding the lead at the end. I hope it's not us trying to score to win at the end. I'd feel so much better if it's Wilson out there against our defense than Geno out there against the Broncos defense.
Me too. Because how can Wilson not get a little bit of with the nerves in this type of game? Coming back home here, a place you played 10 years, Monday Night Football, you're going to a new team, all the expectation in the world. You got this new contract you just signed. I mean, he's human. And like, maybe he's able to just robot his way through it and just like deprogram the worry of coming to stadium and just stay mellow. I mean, maybe, but I think that stuff's got to factor in along with the fact, again, he hasn't played any of the preseason. I mean, maybe that has no effect at all, but I just have to feel like some is going to cause a little bit there.
The Snail, thank you for the $2. Abe Lucas All-Pro for sure.
Let's go.
Again, I mean, when was the last time? I guess it happens every now and then. Micah Parsons made All-Pro last year, so rookies make it sometimes.
Well, yeah, I think Rashawn Slater was at the least second team All-Pro if he was not first team All. And Tristan Wirfs the year before that might have been a second team All-Pro.
Yeah,
so it does happen, and Wirfs was a right tackle.
All right, so All-Pro, you say Brooks, I said Dixon. Are you on the Dixon train as well, you think?
Yeah, now that I think about it, Dixon should make it this year. He's established enough as a name in the league, too, that people will be like, oh, yeah, that guy should definitely get in.
Okay, Pro Bowl. And I know the Pro Bowl is kind of a goofy thing because there's a lot of name recognition involved, but let's say play at a Pro Bowl level. What Seahawks do you think are going to play at the level to where we can credibly say they should be there? What you got?
I don't think they're going to get the touches to shine as much because of the nature of how much you're going to run the ball. And that's DK Metcalf and Tyler, I think, are both going to be at least that near Pro Bowl level in the way that they look. But again, they're not going to get the touches. You're not going to get DK 130 touches this year. He'll probably ends up with like 90, which will be like 65 catches maybe. And everybody goes, well, so those are two guys. I think Rashad Penny does if he stays healthy. I mean, if Rashad Penny to me goes for 12 games, he's going to be at the end of the year around 1,400 yards. If he can get in 12 healthy games that I know about and kind of get his way through the others, however he does, I think he can get to that spot of things. So Penny's the guy for me offensively. That's about it. I think offensively, hard to say the rookies can get there like that. Defensively, Pro Bowl, obviously Brooks. I think Adams and Diggs, I almost say more Adams than I do Diggs. I've got a new theory on this, Brendan, that Diggs could still play out of his mind just as well as he's played these past couple of seasons, but he doesn't get as much shine because he's not as much in that center field role of just roving and getting those interception attempts like he'd get where he's getting 5-6 picks in a year. Now he's going to be doing more strong safety type stuff at times and a little bit more varied. I don't know if that puts him as much in position to get those turnovers like he did, though he could still play really well. But Adams is going back to a natural position theoretically in this defense. We thought maybe he might be playing a little bit of middle linebacker. And if he's been playing all over the place and then back to his natural tendencies, he was an all-pro playing in this type of defense before. So could he get back to Pro Bowl with that, even with the cast? Yeah, he could. I know his injury situation is what it is, but I think he could. Probably
yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm going to say Penny plays at that level. I don't know if he'll get that credit, but I think he'll be at that Pro Bowl level. I think Diggs and Adams are both going to do it. And I would throw in Darrell Taylor as well. I have him getting to 12 sacks, and I think that'll be good enough. Maybe the name recognition won't be there quite yet, but I think Taylor's going to play at a Pro Bowl level.
My theory on why I didn't have Taylor there is I think he's not going to play the run well enough. He's going to be a little bit of a one-track guy in this, that he'll be good as far as generating pressure, but he's going to be a little bit of an albatross out there in the run game. And that to me dings him down just a little bit from that.
That's possible. That's I'm open to that happening as well. We saw a little bit of that in this preseason where he's just overrunning plays a little bit.
Yeah, his instincts in the run game, the tackling in the run game, the want in the run game, all three of these things is just not awesome in that from what I see from him on tape. It's there. It can improve. He's a young guy. You can get better at it. And I think it's better now that he's not a defensive end on those early downs, because that's where you get just crushed, is when he was putting his finger down. Now he gets the wide 9, stand up. It's a little bit easier to set that edge when you're naturally already a foot outside on the edge, right, of the shoulder. I can get that verse heads up over the guy trying to set the edge, where now it's more mano and mano, and I just got to over Hulk this guy out and just overwhelm him. And that's harder for him because he doesn't have that kind of build to do that. He's got more of the outside linebacker build.
Yeah, I think this new defense is going to help him just like it's going to help Adams. Like this is definitely tailor-made around them. Here's a big one for the Seahawks this year, the all-rookie team, because we're going to have a lot of rookies playing this year. So real quick, for my part, I think Cross is going to be first team all-rookie. Okay. I think he's going to be the best left tackle. I've heard bad things about Ekwonu. And I'm getting some indications that we already know Trevor Penny can't do it because he's going to miss most of the year. I think Lucas is going to make all rookie second team. And I'm not going to say first team because I think that somebody like Evan Neal is just going to get more, I don't know, credit with the AP voters. Agreed. And I'm going to say Kobe Bryant finds his way onto the second team as well.
Kobe Bryant with who might not, no, okay.
I mean, it sounds like he's going to get to play a lot. He's going to play inside. He's going to play outside. A lot of opportunities for him to do enough stuff to get out there. So I'm going to go with, I'm going to say Kobe makes it. What do you think?
I would go with yours. I'm not as much on the corners as much. I think that they have their up and down moments, but I don't know if they'll show quite enough flash early on to get people on board with putting them onto an all rookie team. I don't think Mafe is going to get enough snaps to be able to do it. So I'll be a little bit boring on this, where I think it's just those two guys. Walker's, I think, going to run for like 650 yards, 700 yards, maybe at the most. And I don't think that's going to be enough to garner him with all the running backs. It'll be like Breece Hall will probably have 1,000 yards this year as the first back, So I don't see it.
He's going to be close, I think. I think Walker will be close. And if the injuries break the right way, it could happen.
Yes.
Walker didn't have any injury issues in college, did he?
None that I'm aware of. No.
Very healthy. Because after the hernia, people were messaging me like, do you think we need to sign another running back because all of our running backs have such big injury issues? And I was like, yeah, I don't think Walker has that. I think it's just one unfortunate fluky thing.
Yeah, no, it was a fluky thing. And it's, you're right about if there's an injury to Penny, look, he will get it. If there's an injury to Penny, he's going to get the 200 carries it'll take to get there. Because you and I both have faith in this kid's ability, where it's a matter of, for me, not that he doesn't have the talent to be that. It's just that, is he going to get the opportunities? It's a little bit like Metcalf being an all-pro. I think Metcalf will play at like all-pro level this year in what he's out there, but I don't think he's going to give you all-pro production because he's not going to get the attempts to do it. And same thing's there with Walker a little bit. He'll give you all-rookie play, but just that it's coming in fits and starts a little bit because the team wants to get all they can out of Penny. It's smarter for the team to preserve Walker a little bit this year, run Penny into the dirt on the 5.75 and call it a day, and then put Walker in next year. I
completely agree with that. I think that's actually the right way to look at things.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. And Seattle have shown their hand a little bit with this one, I think, and that's what they're planning on doing.
Okay. Any other last minute things you want to throw out there about the Seahawks team this year in terms of like predictions? Any players you want to single out as I don't know, maybe even a player you think is going to disappoint people. I had Damian Lewis as somebody who, if he stays at left guard, is going to be below average. That was my big disappointment.
I tend to agree with you on that. I think Poona Ford is a guy that, for me, again, is started to approach that place for me last year, where I was starting to go, okay, I don't know if I'm as much understanding in Poona with what he's bringing play in and play out versus a flash here, a flash there. What, as an undersized guy, and going to the 3-tech last year, I was pretty underwhelmed. I think he's going to probably continue in this new defense in the 3-4 to not necessarily find a natural fit. He needs to be a 5-tech and a 4-3 defense, and that's really what he is. We both have kind of similar, you with Damian Lewis. It's like kind of, it's talking, we're sort of highlighting guys that are playing naturally out of position a little bit. Obviously, I think we're both down on Cody Barton to a degree in that respect. Right. I think where we see him and where he's going to be at. I think Phil Haynes, if he does play out the gate, will play pretty good for Seattle. Again, when the guys had to play, he has played really well. Interesting, by the way, I did a Miles Adams, and they were asking him back in college as I was doing some research on it. He said the toughest guard that he played, toughest lineman that he played against in college was Phil Haynes. This was prior to going to the Seattle Seahawks. They were asking him about it in a college article. So it wasn't like that Seattle thing. But I do think Miles Adams, I did a video on him a couple of days ago, and looking at him in the preseason, Brendan, I know it's the preseason, and I know that it's something to not take away from, but what he brought is not something you have really anywhere else on this defensive line. So as I think Poona fades, you could see Miles Adams taking over some of his snaps, especially if it's a matter of Poona being at the defensive end or being at the 0-tech, where that's where they try to align Poona. This guy has penetration for days. He understands the gap and a half scheme so well on tape. He plays it so naturally. It fits his skill set perfectly. And he's got a variety of moves, plays with a high effort, smart, intuitive player out there. I was really, really, really blown away by watching the tape on him. And it was the coach's tape, Brendan. It was looking at the tape from him from behind and going, geez, this kid's just all over the place. And no one else in that line's doing it at the time. Hewitt's not doing it. Hewitt's doing what you usually see in preseason with those guys, where they just go up into a pile and they kind of just get stymied. And this kid was every play penetrating, twisting off, back through there, high. And I think that he's going to come in and he's going to surprise some people this year, I think. I'm not saying a star, but I think he's going to come in and provide a role. And people are like, wow, this guy as a pass rusher on the inside is a problem.
There's room for something good to happen on this defensive line.
There is. Yeah. 100% there is. And I think this kid, this role is ready for this kind of kid to jump forward, because you've got a guys that Shelby's good. He's more of a bull rush, back you off, and then uses these long arms to pull you to the ground kind of pass rusher. It's weird if you watch his highlights. It's that over and over, just and then pulls the quarterback down. This kid's got that. It's more of the twitchy kind of, it's what you normally look for a 3-tech kind of, quite frankly, as far as that explosiveness that he has and use of hands with the explosiveness.
Yeah. Sign me up for the Miles Adams thing. That would help a lot. I know you had that video. I think you compared him to Michael Bennett a little bit.
It was weird. I mean, even down to remember how Michael Bennett wouldn't use his spin move a lot. He would just at little key moments use the spin move. And then when he would, it would be devastating because he never used it. So it was like a pitcher that throws fastballs and sliders suddenly throwing their changeup that they throw 5% of the time. And then here's just like, what? And that's how he would do it on. And this kid's the same way. And that he's setting up his moves. He's chaining them together. He's doing this with natural quickness and ability. So it's not just try hard. He's got a big toolbox of a whole bunch of rips and spins and swipe moves. It's also, he's doing it with really supreme athletic ability. And again, that was what you saw with that first step quickness, the hand usage. The first step quickness gets him that natural leverage win, Brendan, with Miles, where because he's so fast into the lineman, getting out of his stance, he's always up under the shoulder, under the chest plate of the lineman naturally, which then gets the lineman panicking. And that's then when he's able to go back to a second and third move to then get around him and go. Maybe it was just he had this unbelievable preseason, and it was just I'm getting a little bit, letting that mirage me a little bit here. But it was very much similar to what I saw from Bennett in his career. Just very similar, game record kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I hope it happens, because we know it's not coming from LJ Collier. And
what's the ETA on LJ on this roster, by the way? Does he go on? Are you telling me he's gonna make it all year to spite us? Is that what they're doing?
With the way things go, you could swear that Pete actually really thinks he's special, like actually holding a roster spot for him despite the injury, when, nobody in the world would blame you if you just let him.
No, I nobody would. him or her, I guess he's got some benefactor in that room, Brendan. I mean, he didn't play all preseason, has been injured multiple times over in his young career, despite barely playing. He's never done anything consistently. You've tried him at defensive end. You've tried him at defensive tackle. Now you're going to try him as a 3-4 defensive end. Like, how many chances do you get to kind of fail?
Well, always at least one more, I guess.
And meanwhile, Marquise Blair's cut.
He didn't he land somewhere finally? He landed in Carolina.
Probably did. I mean, look, that's the one thing watching that Adams tape too that I kept being struck by was like, yeah, there's missed tackles in there by Blair that I'm watching, but then there's Blair making plays in there too. Like frankly, Brent, I'm a little bit like chewing that one up a little bit in my mind on that one. Like, wait a minute. No, it's not just he was like completely lost this preseason, not looking good. There's some spots on the tape where he looked really good. And that one's an odd one. That one's an odd one for me.
Hopefully we don't live to regret it.
Hopefully not.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for coming out. We had a fun show tonight. We ran through season predictions for the 2022 Seahawks. We'll see how many we hit. We'll see how many we miss. A lot of people in the chat were playing along with us, making their own predictions. So we'll see. We'll see. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. Football is always both of those things, even when your team is not the best. Brandon, I want to thank you for coming out to the channel today.
My pleasure. As always, had a great time, Brendan.
Yeah, we should be doing this again very soon here because we've got a Broncos game to preview. And it seems like fate has it that we're going to be doing it maybe as early as tomorrow.
There you go. So we'll be right back at you guys.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming out. We had close to 300 people at one point in the stream, still over 250. Appreciate the support. Be seeing you guys soon. And, of course, before we go, we got to do it. We got to hit you guys with it at least once. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.